and balances, and actually
appeared at a Farkas wasn't Obama. She had to remove Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much. This time we're going to win.
Yeah, we don't have to impeach him. We'll just beat him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the story of Wednesday, October 2, 20.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. When you listen to Nancy Pelosi tell it, impeaching the president is really the last thing she ever wanted to do. In fact, she hadn't even considered it, really, until the day that the news of Trump's norm-shattering phone call with the president of Ukraine emerged into public view. It was at that point that impeachment became entirely inevitable. As a patriotic American and a person of deep and sincere and passionate religious faith, Nancy Pelosi really had no choice at that point. The die was cast. She had to remove the president from office immediately. So that's Nancy Pelosi's story. We don't read minds on this show, so we can't really tell you if it's true or not. What we can say with absolute certainty, provable certainty, is that permanent Washington has been thinking about impeaching Donald Trump for an awfully long time. In fact, before he was even elected president, if you can imagine that, they were thinking about impeaching him. Consider the following clip. It's from a woman called Evelyn Farkas. Farkas was an Obama appointee at the Defense Department. She helped run the last administration's, believe it or not, Ukraine policy. She was also an enthusiastic booster of the Hillary Clinton for President campaign in 2016. So 2 weeks before the last election, Farkas appeared at a panel discussion, which, thankfully for us, was videotaped. Someone asked Farkas who she thought would win the election. And here's what she said.
we do have a strong system of checks and balances. And actually, if Donald Trump were elected, I believe he'd be impeached pretty quickly, or somebody else would have to take over government. And I'm not even joking.
If Trump were ever to get elected, and of course that's likely not to happen, she said he would be impeached. Now, to be completely clear, we are not alleging that Evelyn Farkas was part of a conspiracy. Conspiracies suggest secrecy, and what Farkas and the rest of the national security state did was not secret. It was never hidden. They all but bragged about it. They hated Donald Trump from day one. Now, yes, Donald Trump is vulgar, but that had nothing to do with why they hated him. They disagreed with Trump profoundly, and, by the way, disagreed with most American voters on the issues, particularly on the question of Russia, but also on the question of Middle Eastern wars. But more than anything, and this is the key, they couldn't control what Donald Trump said or did. Nobody can. And that was the unforgivable crime. So from day one, they planned to take him out. This Ukraine nonsense is just the latest pretext for doing that. There have been a lot of them. Russia, Stormy Daniels, fill in the blanks. It's like Mad Libs. A story in the New York Times this morning reveals every bit as much that this is just yet another pretext. It turns out that House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff knew about the whistleblower complaint before it was even filed. In fact, he orchestrated the story in secret long before you or I or anyone else in the country heard about it. The so-called whistleblower contacted Schiff's office, which recommended a lawyer for him or her. Schiff later lied about that on television, brazenly, openly. He claimed his office had never spoken to the CIA employee directly. Schiff had to know admitting that would undermine the story and hence impeachment himself. By the way, tonight there are credible rumors that Adam Schiff himself planted today's bombshell New York Times story. He knew it would come out, and he wanted the most sympathetic possible coverage. That's the line. We can't confirm that. But either way, the story this morning gravely damages the credibility of the claims Schiff and others are making. Not that anyone in Washington really cares. They've been waiting for this moment for 3 years, no matter what the story was. John Daniel Davidson is political editor at The Federalist, and he joins us tonight. So, John, it does seem significant to me, it seems shocking to me, in fact, that Adam Schiff knew about the complaint before it was filed. What does that tell us about this story?
Well, it tells us that if there's collusion going on, it's collusion between the House Intelligence Committee chair, Adam Schiff, and the whistleblower, and the Democrats in Congress who are pushing for impeachment. You know, this is a really serious revelation that we found out today. Not only did the whistleblower likely violate federal law, but it really casts Schiff's role in a whole new light in this. I mean, there were a lot of people who said from the get-go that it looked like the whistleblower was not acting alone, and now we know he wasn't. He was getting help and advice from the chair of the House Intelligence Committee.
So Schiff went on MSNBC not long ago, and he was asked by a panelist on their morning show, have you spoken to the whistleblower? And he looked right into the camera and said, no, my office has not spoken to the whistleblower directly. Now, if this Times story this morning is correct, that was a lie.
Yeah, that was a lie. And there's no way around it now. Adam Schiff lied on camera on national television about this. But what you're going to hear the media say is, oh, why are you so concerned about this lie from Adam Schiff when the real substance of and ignore the substance of the allegations against Trump in this Ukraine phone call? And the weird thing about it is, there's no cover-up here. There's no secret Mueller probe or secret dossier that no one has seen. Everyone can see the transcript of the phone call. Everyone can see the complaint itself that was the whistleblower letter and the charges the whistleblower brought forward. And you have Democrats and their courtesans in the media trying to tell the American people, don't believe what you can read with your own eyes. Believe us that there's a big conspiracy here and this is an impeachable offense. And it's just not going to fly this time. Not after 2 years of the Mueller probe, not after everything else. People can read and see for themselves what's going on.
So we're being told by the morons on cable news that to question the account of the so-called whistleblower is somehow unpatriotic. But this is a sincere question. This person is a CIA employee, an adult, a big boy. Why would you, if you wanted to file a whistleblower complaint, why would you call Adam Schiff first? I mean, that suggests that your motive is political.
Well, one of the things in the New York Times story that came out today was that the whistleblower didn't like the way his complaint was being handled by the CIA, didn't like the way it was being handled internally. And so, in order to sort of speed the process along and sort of make it go the way he wanted it to go, he reached out to the House Intelligence Committee. But it says, and we had early indications of this, that the motive here is not entirely pure and is probably political. And in fact, this came out early on, the suspicion that the whistleblower had a political bias in favor of one of Trump's 2020 challengers.
So with the Russia collusion story, which went on for over 2 years, I think we on this show spent a full year taking it seriously and then pretending to take it seriously out of a sense of dutiful obligation because, adults were yelling about it and we were trying to, before we said, this is crap, this is purely political, they made it up, it's a hoax. How long should we wait in this case before doing that?
I don't think we should wait at all. I think it's time to call this for the political farce that it is. And, Democrats' behavior is broadcasting that it's a political hit job all over the place. Nancy Pelosi's weird press conference today where she was saying that the Trump White House should work with House Democrats on legislation even as they go forward with their impeachment probe was just strange. Adam Schiff's threats and intimidation of State Department employees, saying that if they don't appear before his committee, it'll be taken as evidence that the accusations against Trump are true. And then meanwhile, we have no formal vote for an impeachment inquiry. Republicans in the House apparently have no role at all in the impeachment investigation. It's an entirely partisan affair. I don't think it's too soon to call this for what it is, that it's a political hit job.
Yeah. Republicans and conservatives have a way of being very literal, and they kind of play along for too long. But I agree with you. Let's stop tonight, actually. John, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
So official impeachment proceedings, despite what they're telling you, haven't actually begun yet. But already some Democrats have reached the sentencing phase of the process. Quote, impeachment is not good enough for Trump, Congresswoman Maxine Waters declared the other day. He needs to be imprisoned and placed in solitary confinement, end quote. That's right. Imprisoned and left to die alone in a cell. Maxine Waters believes that's the penalty for disagreeing with her. You probably won't be surprised to learn that Waters once cheered on a race riot. She's that kind of person. Senator Kamala Harris, meanwhile, doesn't think Donald Trump ought to be allowed to speak. In a formal letter written to Twitter yesterday, the senator demanded that big tech silence the president's social media account. Now, you'd think that journalists, who are, of course, the guardians of the First Amendment, might see Harris's attack for what it is, a move against free speech. But no. Professional dumb person Kara Swisher of the New York Times wrote a semi-literate column endorsing the idea, if you can believe it. A journalist endorsing shutting down speech. Not surprised, though, because to the modern left, winning elections isn't really the point. They want to see their opponents crushed. They want to see them disarmed, censored, silenced, destroyed, removed by impeachment without an election. If that all sounds like fascism, keep in mind the left considers you a fascist. You're the fascist because, as always, whatever they are guilty of, they immediately accuse you of doing. That's always true. Put that on your fridge and live by it. And here's just one example. Here are two MSNBC guests recently. One of them is a Washington Post reporter, believe it or not. Watch them claim that Trump supporters would like to topple democracy by violence. Watch.
This has been interpreted as perhaps the president affirming or encouraging those who feel victimized and disrespected to rise up and act out and push back, even if violently, by any means necessary.
I'm concerned personally that if the president continues this rhetoric, it might start drawing people to Washington. It might start drawing heavily armed people to the National Mall, but entirely possible to think of a scenario where President Trump simply refuses to accept the will of the Senate or of the electorate in 2020 and begins to ask his supporters to come rally to his side.
So I think that guy's a professor at Southern Methodist University, which is, kind of a nice college, in Dallas. A lot of very rich people send their kids there and send money there. If you're sending money to Southern Methodist, to SMU, and you see that guy on TV with a backdrop with your school letters on it, making claims that are totally wild and reckless and dumb and not backed up at all with data or fact, just right off the top of his head, claiming that Trump is planning a violent coup against democracy. If they're using your school to do that, wouldn't you think to yourself, why am I sending so much money to Southern Methodist University? That's what I would think. But let's assess what he said. He said that Trump will, quote, refuse to accept the will of the electorate. Now, that's the claim from the very same people who have refused to accept the last election and the same people who are currently working to short-circuit the next election. It should make you very nervous that now they're talking about heavily armed partisans on the National Mall. Very nervous. Rob Smith is a spokesman for Turning Point USA. He joins us today. So, Rob, is it ever not true that whatever it is they're doing, they're accusing you of doing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the left will tell you all the time that fascism is coming to America. Fascism is already here because of the president, when the reality is that fascism is already here and they are the ones that are perpetrating it. In New York City, right where I'm talking to you from right now, you can be fined $250,000 for calling somebody an illegal alien. You can be fined up to $250,000 for, quote unquote, misgendering somebody. So the fascism is already here and they are the ones that are always the culprits.
So, I mean, it should make you a little nervous listening to them because basically they're describing their own desires when they talk about what they believe you're doing.
Well, they are. And honestly, what I would like to push back on is this idea that everybody that voted for the president or everybody that supports President Donald Trump is some sort of unhinged person that is going to take over the National Mall and start a new civil war if he's not reelected. It is completely absurd. And I would challenge every single person that said that, from the Washington Post reporter to the person from the university, to actually go to a real Trump rally, to actually meet these people in real life. These are patriotic, law-abiding citizens of all colors, by the way, and to insinuate the idea that they would bring a civil war to America because they don't like the results of the election is completely insane to me. And what they have done over the past 2 years is that they have demonized people who voted for the president. They have demonized people on the right. They have demonized conservatives to obfuscate the fact that they have no new ideas and that they are not doing anything for the American people.
So there's a huge swath of America whose life expectancy is in decline. They're dying younger. It's never happened in the modern era. Those tend to be Trump voters.
Yes.
And now they're being attacked? So, like, in a normal world, rich people would be concerned about the people below them.
Yes.
But in our world, they're telling them, shut up and go die.
Yeah. I mean, basically what they're telling them is to shut up and go die. And also, in the case of Kamala Harris, they are literally trying to deplatform people. As a conservative with a pretty high social media following, I have been deplatformed myself. I have been sort of pushed aside via social media. I think that's a lot of things that people want to do to conservatives. And the fact that somebody like the New York Times is publishing something that is advocating for the leader of the free world to be deplatformed from Twitter is pretty outrageous to me. And the reason why they are so mad. No, really. That's your words, not mine, Tucker.
No,
but
she can barely speak English, and they gave her a column? It's like, what is that?
They're handing out columns like candy over at the New York Times.
They certainly are. I want one now. If Kara Swisher could have a column at the New York Times.